You're listening to Being Autistic. I'm your host, Shelly, and I am a 50-year-old woman sharing my experiences about what it's like to grow up knowing I was different but not knowing why, how I learned I was on the autism spectrum, and what it's like to be autistic. Hello, everyone. In this podcast episode, I'm going to talk about disclosing autism. So that basically means telling other people that you are autistic. And of course, this will go for anyone who's already been officially diagnosed. This is one of the first things that you will think about when you are diagnosed. The first question that's going to come to mind is, do I tell people? Because usually when you get some really big life changes or news, your first instinct is to tell everyone. Maybe you're not like that. A lot of people are a little more secretive and want to think about it before they decide what to do. So I'm going to talk about my experience with disclosing my autism with people in my life and how that went. And I'm also going to give my opinion on, I'm probably just going to talk about the pros and cons of disclosing in certain situations. So I'm going to talk first about my experience because this is what I know for a fact. This is how it went for me. When I got diagnosed, I first thought of, how are people going to react? How am I prepared for that? I didn't know, and I still have not told a lot of people. But what I first did was I did feel okay with posting it on my Facebook page, and that is because I'm much more inclined to say things in wording, text messages, words, print, typing, all of that is easier for me than actually talking. So it was so much easier for me to just go on Facebook and just lay it all out and type everything. Because how do you even tell someone, by the way, today I was diagnosed with autism? That's a hard thing to say. It might be for you. And it was for me. So I have still never came out and just said it to anybody. I posted it on Facebook, and that might not be the way that you want to go, but I chose that route because that way I thought, if someone wants to interact with that post, they can. And if they don't know what to say, then that's their prerogative, I guess. So I posted it. I basically said, I am diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder on top of the depression and anxiety that I've had for my whole life, and which I believe is caused from autism. So I posted it, and I got a very interesting response from my friends and family. Well, actually, my family is not able to see my post because I kind of keep that separate. I keep those posts separate from my family. I don't want them to know a lot of things about me, but that's just how I am. I'm private when it comes to things like that. But anyway, so I posted it, and I got a lot of, should I say, acquaintances, people that I knew, and a lot of them I had met in person, but I didn't really consider them a close friend at all. They were just people that I might have met once or twice, people that I enjoy special interests with. They were not close friends because, well, I'll get to that in a minute, but these acquaintances that I would not consider close were the most supportive, which seems backwards. You would expect that your closest friends would react more supportively, but in my experience, that has not been true. And also, I have heard that this happens with a lot of people, where they get the most support from people that don't know them that well. And I have a theory on why that is, because I think people that know you the best want to see you in a certain way. They don't want to have their image of you changed. They, for whatever reason. And so I think that when someone is just an acquaintance with you, they can easily adapt this new label. because it doesn't change much about their perception of you, especially if they've never met you or if they've only met you once and don't know you very well. And also, this will be different for the person that has experience with autism. So let's say you have a bunch of friends and acquaintances that are autistic or know autistic people. They're probably going to be more accepting of it. Whereas people that don't really understand what autism is, they're probably not going to react very well. So my closest friends, of which I have 3 or 4, maybe 2 or 3 that are super, super close, they were the ones that completely ignored my post. They didn't like it. They didn't comment on it. And I have one friend that in real life, when I spend time with them, I'll make a comment regarding autism and they will not even go anywhere with that. They'll just not say anything. And that is interesting to me. Like, you have no comment at all? Like, you have no opinion on my life-changing event? And I've known you for most of my life. So, I mean, I guess they have their reasons, but you might come across that issue with really, really, really close friends. And that can also pertain to family members. You might tell your family, and they will not react how you want them to. How you want them to react is say, oh, really? So how does this affect you? Like, what should I do differently, you know? But instead, what I've noticed in myself and in other people that have disclosed to their family and close friends, people will say things like, you don't seem autistic, are you sure? Or they might come out and say, you're not, they're just telling you you are, you know, or I've had the experience with a close friend where they told me that it was really something else entirely, and I should try to get treated for this other thing instead of it being autism, because this person does not believe that autism is actually a neurological condition that you're born with. So you're going to come into struggles with people that have their own beliefs about it. And then, you know, you might regret telling them, and that brings me to the point of whether or not you should even tell people. So you can, this is of course your prerogative, your choice if you want to tell people or not. But if you do, just a warning that the closer they are to you, they might not respond favorably. So there's that. And I have not told my family at all. I have not told any of my relatives. And my personal reasons for that is kind of ties in with how my close friends reacted. They are probably going to be more judgmental. You know, the closer you are to people, the more they feel like they have a right to tell you their unfiltered opinion. They're not going to hold anything back. They're probably going to say things that are a little more blunt. You know, and autistic people are blunt, so you would think that we would appreciate the honesty. But when it comes to our personal lives, and, you know, this is a big thing. Getting diagnosed with autism is like the biggest turning point in your life. It's huge. And to have someone, even if they're being honest, to have them not accept it or not agree with it, it's going to cause some emotional issues with you. You're going to be like, okay, so I can't even count on my closest friends and family for support. That sucks. So I want to say that, first of all, this is my choice, and you can tell your family, but like, do I regret telling my close friends? No, because they should know. I mean, I think it's such a big part of who we are that everybody that meets us should know. But when I say should, I'm not telling you that you should. That's of course I'm gonna keep saying it. It's your choice don't do things just because I say it or not. So I'm just personally saying that I believe that people in my life should know that I'm autistic. But not that. Okay, now I'm going to explain why I have not told my family. I am a very private, personal person with my family because, well, first of all, I'm the different one. I'm the black sheep of the family. My dad never really allowed me to be myself. He was always very strict and judgmental and controlling, and so I would have never told him when he was alive. But my mom is still alive, and here's my reasoning for why I don't tell her. I feel like, I'm not even a parent, but I feel like a parent would maybe feel a little guilty if they learned that their child was autistic their whole life and didn't get diagnosed. Like, my mom would probably feel bad that she didn't notice, that she didn't get me diagnosed. If she didn't know what it was, how would she have known what to do about it? So I can't hold that against her. I just don't want to tell her, though, because she's very protective, I guess, and caring, and those are good things, of course. But I don't want her to go overboard and just try to baby me more than she already does. And so that's my personal reason why I don't tell her. I probably, like I said at the beginning, it's hard to just blurt out, I was diagnosed with autism, or hey, I got something important to tell you about me. I'm not like that. That's just me. I'm not good at just springing things on people that are personal. So I might tell them if a situation comes up where they kind of have to know, or it's like a need-to-know basis kind of thing. But as of now, I don't really have any plans to tell my family. It might help them understand me more, but it is what it is, and so that's just my personal experience with it. So another thing that you might be wondering when it comes to disclosing autism is, should you tell your employer? Now, I am self-employed, so I do not have a boss, but I can give my opinion on what I've learned from other people. There's a wide variety of responses that an employer can give you. If you are already employed and you tell them, things might not go how you plan. And I've heard this from other people, and this is my basis for this, is just what other people have said, that they might start treating you differently in a bad way. Be prepared for that, I guess. And they might also help you do your job better. So when you do get an official diagnosis, you are officially disabled in the eyes of the government, and you are, what's the word? You are able to, this is not the right word, but you are able to ask for accommodations. That is something that you legally can do, and the employer is supposed to accommodate you. So that's something that to think about if you want to have, if you want your boss to help you with your job in some ways. Like, let's say you want to have your area dimmer or less loud. You want to be able to wear earphones, noise blocking earphones. Maybe you want your hours cut so that you can keep the stress levels down. You might want to work from home more days of the week if you can. Things like that. So that's an option for you. I guess it's a personal decision depending on your job and how much your job affects you. And so if you are not employed, or if you are looking for a job, here's the question of, should you tell a new employer? Should you tell when you are having an interview? And I've heard many different viewpoints on this. So the pros and cons of telling them is, that if they hire you, they know what they're in for. They know what they're getting into. They should be aware of your needs. And if they are accommodating, then they should be able to do that for you. That's a good outcome of that. On the flip side, the cons of that would be they might not hire you at all, or they might hire you and treat you differently in a bad way. It's your call. There really is no consensus out there of whether or not it's good or bad to tell in an interview whether or not you have autism. So it's something to think about. It's not something that's, like I said, I have never seen any advice from autistic experts saying, yes, you should tell, or no, you should not tell. It's a very personal thing, just like telling your friends and family. If it were me, if I did have to get a job again, I think it would depend on the job itself. A lot of them would have different ways to accommodate you. Some of them are more strict. Like, let's say I've had a lot of jobs working in factories, and let's say I were to get another job in a factory, and let's say I were to say, I am autistic, can you accommodate this in any way? There's really not much they can do, because jobs like that, they are usually very bright, they're usually very loud, they're usually very fast-paced. You're usually working with machines that are loud, but they're repetitive, and that might be a good thing. So it really depends on the job. So like if you're applying for a customer service job and you have problems with people, you can't just say, well, can I just not do that and do something else instead? It might work for you and it might not. I've worked in retail stores where I didn't know I was autistic at the time, but I said, I'm not good with money. I'm not good with numbers. I am not good with people. I'm not good with phones. So therefore, I do not want to work the cash register or answer, I don't want to be the front person. I wanted to work in the background. And that did work a little bit, but they still wanted to train me in on the cashier position. And that's something that you don't have any control over with some jobs. So it really comes down to finding the right job for you, something that'll work for you in a way that you won't need to ask for accommodations. And in that case, it probably is fine to tell them that you're autistic in the interview. So like a good example of that would be, let's say you are applying for a job. Well, I'm trying to think of a job that would work good for that. Something where you're working in the back, working alone. That's a good one, because there's a lot of good points to that. You're not dealing with customers. You're probably more likely to be in a quiet environment if you're in the back somehow, or if you're in your own cubicle in an office, or in your own room in an office. You can control your environment in there. So it really comes down to how much you can control your environment. So use those as guidelines if you are applying for a job to determine whether or not you should tell them. And I really wish there was more awareness of autism, so that more employers would be more welcoming of it, or have more positions that are good for the autistic person. I think that's pretty much all. I really didn't have a whole lot to say about this subject because I have limited experience with it, since I don't have a job. I have my own business, so that's not an issue. And that's also something, too, that might help you with the job situation. If jobs are hard for you, which they were for me, I did a whole episode on how I struggled with work. If you struggle with work, too, and you don't want to even deal with telling an employer that you are autistic, think about starting your own business or working for yourself, working from home, doing any type of side project, remote work, things like that. It's what a lot of autistic people end up doing, because you are in control of your environment. It's very good that way. So I hope this episode was helpful for you, and I know I don't have a whole lot of experience with telling people because I have not told my family, but I have seen what other people have experienced. It's not always good. And like I said, it seems to be worse when it comes to the people closest to you. And, it's unfortunate that that is true. But I've noticed that that's even true with other things. I've noticed that when I've told really, really close friends about my business even, they will not be supportive. They're going to be more apt to say things like, why why don't you just get a job doing this? Or, that's not going to work out. You're not going to make enough money. They're going to point out all the negatives. But if you tell an acquaintance, I've got this business. This is what I do on the side. This is my business. They're going to be like, oh, that's really cool. I want to do that too. How do you do that? They're way more open. So to keep that in mind when it comes to disclosing, people that are closest to you might not react as well as you want them to. So thank you so much for listening to this episode, and I'll see you again in next week's episode.